Wow, what a finale. Season 2, Episode 10, titled Cold Harbor, proves once again Severance is one of the best shows on TV right now. It continues to fire on all cylinders, and this episode gives us a satisfying conclusion, providing some answers to our biggest questions, and also setting up a highly anticipated Season 3, which has officially now been greenlit. Let's break it down and find out what we learned. The birthing cabin is such a creatively written and constructed scene, as Innie and Outie Mark are able to have a conversation with each other via video camera. Having one person's split identities trying to reason and communicate with each other was fascinating to watch. It was so compelling because you've grown to really care for both of them, and you can understand where they're each coming from. I don't think the concept of cognitive dissonance has ever been so beautifully captured before. Not only that, but we now fully understand the moral dilemma Mark is in. If he is successful in saving his wife Gemma, it means Mark will cease to exist, and so will all the other Innies on the severed floor as well. Harmony asks to speak with Innie Mark because he and Outie Mark are unable to come to any common ground. It's here where answers regarding what MDR does are finally revealed. The numbers are the doorway into the mind. They are feelings associated with Gemma's tempers. Every one of Mark's 25 files has created a new severed Innie for Gemma, and Cold Harbor is the final one, and will be the final test to see if the severed barriers will hold. Harmony reminds Innie Mark that there will be no happy ending for him and Helly R, regardless if he is successful in saving Gemma or not. She is an Egan after all, so he might as well at least try and save Gemma. This takes us to Cold Harbor. We finally get to see what's inside that room, and it turns out to be a completely empty room with a soul baby crib in the middle. The ultimate test to see if Gemma's barrier can hold when confronted with her most painful experience. The test is a success, and this has been the grand plan of Lumen, to now bring this severance chip into the real world and use it as a means of eliminating painful memories. The scene between Innie Mark and Helly as Mark is contemplating finishing Cold Harbor is fantastic and one of the most emotionally impactful in the entire series. We feel for both these characters. We want them to be happy, and this scene epitomizes why I love Helly so much. Because she's truly good. She wants what's best for Mark. She puts him above herself, and she will do whatever is needed to make this happen, which leads her to creating a diversion by stealing Milchick's walkie-talkie so Mark can escape to the testing floor. And from here on out, the rest of this episode is pure white-knuckle adrenaline. Next, we learn the significance of the goats. Lorne brings the goat to Drummond in another display of cult-like behavior from Lumen. This goat is to be sacrificed and then entombed with a woman, almost certainly Gemma, and it's believed the goat's spirit will guide Gemma to Kyr's door in the afterlife. It's one of many sacrifices made in Kyr's war against pain. There have been many sacrifices just like this, which implies there have been many others before Gemma who have died. What follows is perhaps the most brutally intense and satisfying sequence in the series. Mark S. and Lorne fight Mr. Drummond, and it climaxes in Outie Mark taking over while going down the test floor elevator, at which point he accidentally fires the bolt pistol into Drummond's neck. Mark finds Gemma to the dismay of Dr. Maurer and Jane Egan, and is able to bring her out of the room. And there is a beautifully powerful moment. Outie Mark and Gemma are reunited once again in a loving embrace. Meanwhile, back on the severed floor, in another great Helly moment, she inspires the band players to form an alliance. Milchick is finally able to break his way out of the bathroom, but is met with quite a sight as Dylan and the other band-playing employees are ready to rumble. Let the uprising begin. Alright, I have 3 more things from the finale that I want to discuss. First of all, I want to talk about the scene at the very beginning of the episode when Helly is in the MDR room and Jane Egan is there, and he reveals that he doesn't love his daughter Helena because he no longer sees Kyr in her, but he says that he sees Kyr in Helly. And then he also reveals that he has sired many other children as well. And what has me curious here is I wonder what it is specifically about Helly that he sees Kyr in her, which was such a surprising thing to hear because to me, Helly is such a good character, like morally and ethically, she's a good person. And then here Jane Egan says that he sees Kyr in her. Is there some sort of, evil inside Helly that he sees? Is there some sort of corruption in her that he sees? And maybe it isn't necessarily something that we would identify as evil or bad, but I'm just very curious more specifically what it is exactly that he sees in her and what that essentially means going forward for Helena/Helly. And it has led some people to speculate that possibly Jaime Egan will invoke the Glasgow block and allow Helly to take over as the entire identity of Helena. And so she would no longer be Helena, she would just be Helly. So very curious to kind of see kind of more of the specifics and sort of where that goes upcoming in season 3. As I said, Jaime Egan also mentions that he has sired, many children. And I've seen some theories out there that potentially Harmony Cobell is the mother of one of these children, and people have speculated that Mark S. is one of the kind of illegitimate children of Jaime Egan, and Harmony being his mother, which kind of explains some of her behavior throughout the series, and especially in this episode where she really says, she says to Mark, I care for you, I care about you. And so here's the thing though with that, because what that would mean if Jaime Egan and Harmony Cobell had Mark, it would mean obviously Mark is also an Egan. Which would mean Helena rather, is his half-sister. And is the show really going to kind of go in that direction? Because you've got half-brother, half-sister have now been involved in intimate relations, and there's even the speculation out there that Helena could be pregnant with Mark's child. And so I have a little bit of reservations about kind of going down. I'm not really sure if the show is going to go in that direction. It very well could, but I just am a little hesitant to really kind of buy fully into that theory just because of what it means and what it implies. And finally, I have to talk about the very ending where Annie Mark finally gets Miss Casey out of Lumen, and then she turns into Gemma, and we have a very kind of emotionally devastating scene, at least from Gemma's perspective, where she sees Mark now choose another woman. And of course, he goes back to Helly and they run off. And here's the thing, right? There is some speculation on, is this really Helly or is this actually Helena? And I can kind of see both thoughts. So here's kind of my thoughts. On one hand, I could see that it is Helly. I think in some ways she really wants to be with Mark S. And so her taking him and running off is kind of her just letting that desire for him to take over. However, on the flip side, we all know, at least from what Irv told us in one of the earlier episodes, that Helly was never cruel. And her kind of looking at Gemma down the hallway, screaming and pleading for Mark to come back, for her to just kind of ignore that and take Mark and run off seems a bit cruel. Not only that, given the good nature of Helly's character, it seems to me, based on how she even acted previously in the episode, that she would have kind of forced Mark outside of the building to just so he could, go be with his wife. On the flip side, though, if it really is Helena, what that would mean is somebody amongst all the chaos that's happening at Lumen while this is all going down would have to have invoked the Glasgow block. However, this would be in a way that we've never quite seen it been implemented yet. And that's not to say that couldn't happen, but we've only seen it be implemented for the innie to take over the outies in the outside world. This would be Helena, the outie, taking over the innie inside Lumen. So it'd be kind of a complete flip there in terms of how the Glasgow block is implemented. Here's my thing though. If this was really Helena, part of me thinks that she would do anything she could to get Gemma back into the building. Even if it meant sort of blowing her cover right in front of Annie Mark, to me, that would kind of be the top priority. Seeing that Gemma is there outside the door, I would think Helena would be less concerned with taking Mark and running off with him and more concerned about getting Gemma and trying to get her, if she has to wrestle her or fight her, but try to get her back into the building, because that to me seems like the most important thing, because Helena would know that if Gemma gets out, then this whole thing is done. It's over with. And so I'm not really sure what to think. I can kind of see both cases to be made there. And so it'll be very interesting to see what ends up happening with season 3. This is, seemingly leading up to what's going to be probably another sort of rescue mission, as this was the rescue mission of getting Gemma out. Now Gemma is undoubtedly going to connect with Devon and Harmony, and they're probably going to have to figure out how to rescue Mark. And I like the final freeze frame, how this episode ended with kind of just this look of uncertainty on both Mark and Helly, or Helena's faces, sort of, what do we do now? And that's really the point, is like, what's kind of the goal here? What's the game plan? There really is no future together with them, right? So like, what are they gonna do? How is exactly this all gonna work? And so while the episode does, I think, a really good job giving us some answers and kind of satisfying us in that way, not, continually leaving us on a cliffhanger sort of thing, but also leaving some things open-ended and certainly setting up season 3 for some pretty, exciting stuff that I'm, very much looking forward to. So anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah, I love this show. It's pretty great. So that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching. Hit me up down below. Let me know. Do you think it was Helly? Do you think it was Helena? What do you think is going to happen with Helly? Is she going to officially kind of take over now? What exactly went down? So be curious to hear from you guys. So that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor, and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.